Sam. You're good to go.
Well, hello and welcome back. We are back at my world. Hope everybody's had a great week. It's been nice weather recently. I feel like we haven't really been bombarded with crappy weather that we had in May, like the 40 days of rain in a row. But I'm excited to be back, and as promised, today's episode's going to be more really an inside look of how this all came about and why I'm doing this in the first place. And so a lot of people know me, as an acquaintance, as people that have introduced me to, or I've been introduced to someone. A lot of people know me through different paths of life. And, I think a lot of people really also still don't know me as a person. And it's really not about me, more about, how my life can possibly relate to yours. And, if this is something that you've always thought about maybe doing, but never had the inspiration or motivation to do it, I hope I am for you. So it goes back obviously to, a lot of tough times, a lot of hard times. It's mostly hard times. But I don't think you get to appreciate the good in life without that. So, just kind of going back to, like, again, as I promised, the inside scoop. So how we got here. A lot of people may or may not know, even to this day, what Chaldeans are, and, the trouble that it took to get here, to get out of the dangers of Iraq, to get out of the dangers of the war zone, to escape from their scary army, to just basically want a better life. And I think this is going to be, one of those stories where you can probably say, yikes. If that's how it is for just them, then I wonder how it is for the rest of the world. Because obviously it's not just happening in our country. So, obviously in the 80s, which is when I was born, my mom and my dad were trying to escape Iraq during the Iraq-Iran war. Very, very brutal times for everybody. A lot of deaths, a lot of just uncertainty as to, where you're going to be the next day. So my mom decided and my father decided to sneak out of the country, and we're only allowed to walk at night, hide during the day, because obviously if you were caught, obviously things they don't end up well. So escaping a country like that, only being able to walk at night. My mom was pregnant with me, at the time, probably eight months pregnant with me. And imagine you're 8 months pregnant. Your, husband's trying to escape the army. You already have 4 kids, very young kids, and you're trying to walk across the country at night, 8 months pregnant with 4 kids and a husband who can't get seen either. And you end up in a country like Iran, who is part of the war. But we've luckily had some people that guided my mom to a refugee camp in Iran that allowed them to sleep, for however many days and weeks until they were able to find another place to go. So I was born in Iran. And if that answers any questions as to, anybody wondering if I've been here my whole life, I know I act like it. America is really the only country I've known. I mean, obviously I haven't really remembered anything. I was only a baby in the old country. But so from Iran, where I was born, my mom went to Damascus, Syria, where I was actually baptized in an Orthodox church in Damascus. Then to Greece, where we lived for 2 years as refugees again. My 2 younger brothers were born there, Danny and Stanley. And that was where we were offered the sponsorship from a family in Colorado to come here. So we were sponsored by a very generous family, obviously, who wanted to take us in and help us, get acclimated to a new country and get us out of, the refugee status that we were in for so many years. So I don't know, and I don't know if I could even find them again, but I wish I could, because I want to extend my gratitude to this amazing family or this group or a church that came out of Colorado to sponsor my family and myself to this beautiful country. And that to me is huge. Maybe if this video gets out there enough, somebody may be able to speak out and say, hey, that was me. But, long story short, we're very appreciative of whoever that was. Now, coming to America was an option. It was either live with the family that sponsored you or move to a state that you have relatives that you're familiar with. And my parents chose the people that they were familiar with because they had no idea what Colorado was. So the word was back home that Detroit was this place that everybody's gone to that has had a lot of opportunities, whether it be the auto business and, the big three offering jobs for a lot of people. So there were a lot of opportunities at the time for families to grow in Detroit, and it still is. I mean, this is why we love this city. But it was brutal. The journey from my mother was nothing but, I'm just going to go and say hell. She has went through just the worst of the worst of the worst. Traveling from one country to the next, finding a home for her, then 6 kids and herself and my dad. So obviously she's one of my favorite people to talk about because of who she is, but not because of her being my mom, but her as a person. I've never met a stronger human being in my life. I mean, what she's gone through is more than anybody, any kind of pain that I've ever seen anyone intake. So, it's a bold statement for sure, but that's because I've seen firsthand what she went through. And when we came here, it didn't get easier. I mean, we went directly to Highland Park in a street where we were probably the only house standing up on the whole block. I mean, this house next to us was burnt down. The house next to that had 2 people living in it, and the homes all across the other side were all drug houses. Everybody was pushing all kinds of drugs. I mean, you don't want to know what I saw as a kid. And I won't bring it up because, snitches get painful endings. But I'm not going to bring that up at all. But I will tell you that I saw more drugs as a kid than I probably should have. And that's with the territory, right? And I think that, thank God for me, my mom kept us close to home and didn't really let us roam where we could have been confused and taken into that lifestyle, especially for my brothers. And I'm just happy that we didn't end up in more danger than it could have been, because no matter what my mom did, no matter how many things my mom would rebuy and rebuy and rebuy, it seemed like we kept getting robbed over and over and over. And the poor thing had to kind of start over again every single time. And now, mind you, this is going to go back to who she is. This is just the type of person my mother is. No lick of English, 17 hours a day of work, 6 kids going to school. And she was able to manage to love us all equally, put food on the table, go to school to learn English, to take the test to become a citizen. I mean, I don't know how much you can ask of a human being, but that was her. That's just who she is. So she takes the test to become a citizen and to learn English, to be able to understand the questions, and then do everything the way she should have. And on top of that, still be there for all of us in our schools and our events and my spelling bees as a kid. And I had all these things that I used to be obsessed with in school. I I was very much a teacher's pet. I'm sure that doesn't shock anybody, but it's been amazing to see how many things this woman can endure, and to her it's a piece of cake. I think I wouldn't be able to handle a day in her life. But that's the woman that raised me, and I can't thank God enough. So, one robbery after the other, one robbery after the other. I think I recall one time jumping the fence to go to a neighbor's house, to go to another neighbor's house in Detroit, to call 911, and there always was a busy signal. You couldn't get through to 911. There was no, nobody you can talk to if you were getting robbed. And even if you did, they would answer maybe the next day. The cops would show up 3 days later after we've already been sucked dry, and nothing left to our house. So we've seen guns to our heads. We've seen it all. I mean, it's one thing to, have a childhood that everybody can go back and say, wow, I had an amazing childhood. No, mine wasn't amazing, but I'm thankful for it because it made me and my family who we are today. So it wasn't easy by any means, and I think that all the pain that we've endured only brought us and my siblings really close together because we realized we were all we had. And I'm extremely, extremely, extremely thankful for my siblings, my family, my intermediate family. Obviously my parents separated as we were kids, but, when we were probably 9 or 10, my dad had to leave and things just weren't working out. And, everybody goes through tough times, but I'm very thankful for him being able to try to make it up in the last few years. So, huge kudos for him trying either way. And I love him regardless. And I love what he's been able to do to just try to be a better person for us in our later years. So huge respect to my dad. He's one of the sweetest people I've ever met, despite what people may think or may not think. So fast forward with that, growing up, trying to get out of Detroit, I think the last straw was the last time we got robbed. And, the guys threw my mom and my sister in the basement and emptied our house. And I think that was the last straw for our family. I think after that, we just decided, none of us can sleep at night. We didn't know what day, the next day, we were going to have another gun to our heads. So it just wasn't a place to grow up. And we finally were able to get out of that and move on to, I believe, Madison Heights or Warren at the time. And, I think that was kind of the stepping stone into the better life that we had. And long story short, that kind of affected me as a person. So this is where sometimes childhoods like that can affect somebody. And for me, no matter how good I wanted to be in school, I was always afraid to speak. I was always afraid to say anything. It really messed with my ability to say what was on my mind for many, many years, just because I've been scared straight for the last however many years as a kid. And just seeing different things and the hardships. So that makes for a very nervous child. And for me, that kind of carried on to my high school years, so much to the fact that I had to be transferred to a smaller high school because I didn't know how to fit in. I never did. And then once that happened, I came along. I believe it just got much better for me at that point. And then during high school, I met with a Winning Futures Mentoring Solutions every week. Lori Tarter and Christian and everybody in the team from Winning Futures probably saved my life at that point. And I'm also not going to take away the credit for, I call her my Irish godmother, but she's been somebody that has been around me as a kid throughout my life, trying to take me away from all the bad, and she would show me the good. She showed me what, up North Michigan was like. She showed me all the beautiful parts of life were, And I have to give that huge shout out to Meg Spicer, who, as a kid and in my recent years and to this day has been more than a sister, more than a godmother. She's been like an aunt and a best friend. And our whole family is very appreciative of her. So I was very lucky to have winning futures in my life and people like Meg and, all these people that didn't give up on me. So fast forward, here I am, and I think back to these times, and I think, it would be important for me to share this, and it would be, um, I think for me, I have to. There's too many people that never gave up on me, and I think that, during that time, they didn't have to do what they did. Meg didn't have to do what she did. Winning futures didn't have to go as far as they did to keep their eyes on me. And, all the friends and that I've made in between, high school, college. I'm still friends with a lot of college friends that, we just kind of turned into like a little family. And then since then, it's just been a beautiful life. And I think you really have to compare it to, how much worse things could have been, and it didn't. And because it didn't, you can't let that affect your future. And I'm sitting here today to tell you, you can't let your past determine your future. I don't care how many times we've been robbed. I don't care how many times that I've seen my mom, suffer. I'm not going to let it keep me from seeing the better parts of life. And if anything, I use it as my fuel every time I stress out about anything. It's just, it's really something that I use in the back of my mind to make me keep going. And yes, to this day, I actually go back and visit many times the neighborhood that I grew up on, Carmen, Highland Park, and I go and visit the kids, and I still go visit Greenfield Union Elementary where, I went to school at. And I think it's important because it keeps you grounded and you never want to forget where you came from. But long story short, it has never been easy growing up, but it has definitely been easy in the last few years, at least easier, because every time I think about, and any time I think I have the audacity to think that life is bad now, I think back to the past and the history and think, well, it couldn't have, if we can get through that, then this is nothing. Well, who am I to talk about right now? So it gets me through a lot. And obviously, I'm one of religious faith too. So we grew up Roman Catholic as Chaldeans, and it is a part of the Chaldean culture. Religion is a huge part of the culture, and I'm very thankful for it. Chaldeans, to me, have made me so proud in the last few years as far as where they've come, where they're going as a culture. I think I see a very innovative and progressive future in the kids and in the ones that are growing up right now. I think the future is limitless for our culture as long as we stay grounded and remember to be thankful for, where we came from. I mean, if you look up Babylon and Nineveh and Sumerians and the cradle of civilization, I mean, we go way back to the beginning of time. I think if I'm not mistaken, we created literature. So it's very happy. I'm really happy to be part of that culture. I think it speaks very much for, part of who I am. There's that part, being part of the Chaldean culture, growing up in a very rough neighborhood, having somebody like my mom to raise me, but also, things weren't given to you. You had to work for everything. My first job was when I was 12 and a half, and I don't think I've stopped working since then. But I'm no millionaire, but I'm doing much better. I went to Arizona in 2008 and started doing some ballroom dancing out of nowhere. I walked into a studio, and next thing you know, it was history. I think, after spending weeks and weeks and days with the family of the people that I met at Fat Cat Ballroom and Dance Studio in Phoenix, I started to see a different side to the world. I started to feel much better about people. And, not everybody's out to get you like I felt it was when I was a kid. So it just kind of, it's like it comes in first full circle. Um, as far as you think back to where you were, everything was a stepping stone to where I am today. If it wasn't for the dance studio, if it wasn't for Terry Schmoyer and the people that I met, through Fat Cat Ballroom, a lot of what I was and who I am today, I don't think would have connected. So extremely grateful for them to this day, and have opened up a different side of my character too. So I get to say that I'm a ballroom dancer. And I did that and trained and taught for a few years, and I still like to do it every now and then. But I came back to Michigan as promised to my family, and started working for Auto Loan Options in 2012 as a BDC representative, and then, became a regional sales manager. Next thing you know, I was doing sales all across the country. And 7 years later, I believe 7 years to the month today, I have been with Auto Loan Options and our little family there, and I cannot be more grateful. I think the future is limitless to our company. We're one of the fastest growing companies in the subprime finance lead generation industry today, and I'm heading the BDC department, and we're innovating and growing and finding better ways to service our dealerships across the country every single day. It's actually really, really exciting. And Bob Chica, even though you're not probably listening at the second, but at some point, if you listen to this, you've been, kind of a huge factor in who I am today as well, as far as everything you've taught me. I soaked in a lot of what you taught me, actually, and it's been amazing and beautiful to grow with this company and with you in general as a person together. So I can't wait to see what the future holds for Auto Loan Options, and I'm excited about it. So even talking about it gets me emotional every single time. So you probably hear my voice getting deeper, but that's just me keeping myself from being a hot mess right now. And so I'm just going to go into summing this all up. I had to do this show. My world really came from not just my world, but the people in it. This is more about everybody that made me want to do this. I know so many amazing people out there doing amazing things, and I probably say this in every single episode, but I will say it till I'm blue in the face. A lot of you deserve recognition for what you do, and this is my way of saying thank you to everybody who had a huge part of happiness in my life. So that is where my world comes from. Michigan is a huge part of my life. It is the love of my life. I'm literally a walking pure Michigan commercial. If anybody decides to leave Michigan, I'm constantly trying to talk you out of it. And I'm probably going to say it until I win. But there's so much about the state that really intrigues me. One, obviously being Detroit, where I grew up. I think the people do it for me. The places, the events, the buildings, the architecture, the history, the food, the cultures. And it's not so much as fast as Chicago and New York, but it's also not so slow. I think we have a perfect medium where people here still have the ability to really look out for each other. And I just love the city and I love the state. So this is why I'm doing this. This is where my world comes from. This is why I felt it was important to start this podcast, and I hope that you guys all enjoy the journey with me. But alongside, I still have a lot of friends in different states and in Michigan that asked me a few questions before the show. So I'm going to go ahead and go down the list and answer some of these hilarious questions. And you might learn some things, and some things may shock you and some things won't, depending on how well you know me. So I'm just going to start right at the top. I'm just going to say your first name. I won't no full disclosure where you're calling from, but I'm just going to start answering some questions from the top. So, first question is, oh boy, did you find out how you turned out to be 20% Italian? That was from Tony from Brooklyn, New York. Tony, I asked my mom this morning. I will get back to you probably by next week. She's actually looking into our ancestry and our history to see who might have messed around with some Italians back then. I don't know. But we shall see very soon, I guess. I know that the rest of me was from the Nineveh Plains region as far as what the DNA test came back and said. So I guess I'm going to learn, your guess is as good as mine right now. I asked my mom this morning, and she said she will have an answer for me very soon. So stay tuned on that. David from Hazel Park. I mean, really? The question is pancakes or waffles. I don't care as long as I get to pour syrup all over it. I don't care. I love both, and I don't discriminate on any kind of food. And I hope that answers your question, David. So next question is Derek from Miami asking me if I was single and what's my type of man. One, yes, I'm single. But I'm married to my job and my career. So there's that. And then what's my type of man? I mean, I'm still single, so I guess I'll know when I meet him. I don't know. I don't know yet exactly. I hope you can keep a job, have a sense of humor. I have a pretty dark sense of humor, so I hope that, you don't look at me funny if I laugh at certain creepy things. But yes, I'm single. Am I looking? I'm not sure. It depends on the offer. And my type of man would just, obviously probably help me feel special. I don't have a real type. I just know that I'll probably know when I see him. How long did you live in Arizona and what brought you there? And that was from my lady, Mariana. Love you, Mariana. She's been one of my biggest supporters in the last few years, and I appreciate you. And actually the daughter of one of the people that I met through the dance studio in Arizona. So this is the cool part of my life. How long did I live in Arizona? On and off, probably about 5 or 6 years. And what brought me there was I wanted to meet my dad. For many years, I really didn't know, I knew he was in Arizona, but I just didn't know where he lived specifically, and I hadn't seen him for years. And I just wanted to build that relationship with my dad again. And that's why I initially went out there. And how did I get into the car business? Matt from Scottsdale, Arizona. Matt, I got into the car business when I was in Arizona trying to build that relationship with my dad. Needed to get a job to pay off college. And the only thing that I could really find at the time was really random. I started selling brand new and used Hondas for a very large dealer group out in Phoenix, Arizona. And that kind of started it, and I fell in love with it. I was making way too much money for a little kid at the time. Didn't know what to do with that. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just know I was happy doing it and felt like I was doing a pretty good job at the time. So when I came back here in 2012, I hooked up with Auto Loan Options and Bob Chica here in actually not even a mile down from the studio where I'm at. We're in Royal Oak, Michigan, and it's been history ever since, and I don't think I'll ever be able to get out of it. How did I make it out of Detroit alive? That's a very good question, Mariana. I would say just by pure blessing and luck. There's really no reason why we made it out of Detroit alive. We've had so many robberies and guns and dangerous situations. I still don't know how we're alive today. I really don't. So to answer that question, I'm going to go ahead and say God just didn't want us to leave yet. I don't know how to answer that question. It was scary, but this is where we are now. We're alive and here to tell the story. And then how my passion for ballroom dancing came about and what gave me the courage to start taking classes. That is Mariana from Michigan and Arizona. My passion for ballroom came from Terry Schmoyer, who owns Fat Cat Ballroom and Dance Studio. He made me want to learn more. He opened that door for me. He uh, gave me the opportunity to learn more, and I can't be more grateful for him. And it was just so much fun. I think once you start ballroom dancing, you can't stop. Once you start learning patterns and techniques and things like that, you just want to learn more and more and more until next thing you know, I was teaching and instructing and competing. And you really can't go backwards with ballroom. It's kind of like riding a bicycle. You'll always learn and know the moves. So it's always fun when a song comes on and you're thinking about what you can do to it. And so that was always fun for me, and that's kind of what made me want to do more with ballroom. Who would you say is one of your biggest influences, celebrity, non-celebrity? That was from Michelle in Germantown, Pennsylvania. Well, Michelle, celebrity influence. That's a tough one. Oprah is one of them. I mean, she literally came from nothing to a billionaire. She went through a lot of struggles being an African American woman in broadcast at her time, and I think what she's done with her career makes me want to do more. I love the person she is. I feel like she has a beautiful soul, and it obviously carries into her work, and I think that's why she attracts so many good people around her. So between her and, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, I mean, Eminem, say what you will about the guy, but he went from trailer to being one of the biggest top 5 rappers ever in history. And takes a very special human being to do something like that. Tenacious and headstrong and, not taking no for an answer and understanding, what his opportunities were when it was handed to him. He went through a lot of struggles in life. I know that he's been sober and clean from drugs. And, there's something just to say about people like that. You can't, I don't care what you think about the guy or what his political beliefs are, or whatever the case may be. I just look what he's done for his life. And that should tell you everything. Do I regret any past experiences? And that was Joe from Cincinnati, Ohio. I can't regret anything. There's no way. Everything that has happened has turned me into who I am today. And I'm not going to say this arrogantly, but I'm going to say this confidently and proudly. I wouldn't change one thing about me today. I feel like I feel like I have a lot of great people around me today, and it's amazing to see how much better it gets every passing year. I feel like my quality of life is getting better, but I think it's because I use the fuel that burned me as a kid. Literally, I still have a burn mark from the house that burned down right on top of me, and I fell right onto my legs. So all that, the anger and the confusion as a kid that happens to you, is used now for me to just want to do more at work. I want more out of life. I don't ever want to go back to that. And ultimately, I want to have enough to be able to get back there and really reshape that old neighborhood, because I feel like the kids and the people in that neighborhood really deserve better. And that's where I feel like I want to take this. So I hope that answers a lot of questions for everybody, my friends and family, about why my world came about and where I plan on taking this. It will be, and I still plan on making this a traveling show as well, where I will be doing remote shows and presenting what my friends are doing and, the successes of different companies based in Michigan. Michigan natives doing good things, Michigan companies that need to be recognized for what they're doing. So if you know anybody, you have anybody, including yourself, that you want presented to the world and through, my world, please reach out to me. I have a website that, my email, contact information, my Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can find me on all social media sites. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you learned something about this. And I hope that if you do plan on making a podcast or want to do something like this in the future, let me tell you, if I can do it, you can. That's all I will tell you. And until next time, everybody, I hope you have an amazing rest of your weekend. Have a great day.